I'm going to tell you something that might feel a little bit uncomfortable, but at the same time, I think a lot of men over 40 are going to be able to relate to it. So I don't think men suddenly become empty at 40. That's not what I'm trying to say. But what I do think is that sometimes life gets quiet enough for you to finally hear it. Because, you know, when you're younger, life is loud. You're always chasing things, relationships, money, validation, survival. But somewhere around 40, things slow down just enough to realize that something's missing. Men start to feel invisible after 40. You get into a routine. There's disappointment in life, career, relationships, success level. And then you start to emotionally isolate yourself because you've been chasing a life that has never fully arrived. Younger men feel seen because potential still exists. You know, you get a job, you're 20 years old, you start working as hard as you can and learning all this stuff. And as much as your brain can absorb is really your potential. It's where your potential comes from. How much can you learn and then apply to your everyday life or your career? You know, that's potential in a nutshell, in my opinion. Might be different for you. Let me know in the comments if I'm just talking shit. But that's what I think. And a lot of men at 40 realize that they're useful to people, but they're not truly known by them. Do you know what I mean? Like, we're valued more for our function than for our identity. You see, when you're 20, it's all about identity. What kind of person are you? Are you funny? Are you relatable? Are you this? Are you that? And then people stop asking how men actually feel, and we slowly disappear into obscurity and into our own minds. You know, men believe that achievement creates fulfillment. Have you ever told yourself, once I get to this point, it'll all be okay. It'll all sort itself out once I get there. I just need to get to that point. But then that point starts here, and then it goes there, and then it goes there, and then it goes there, and then it goes there. And it keeps moving. And so you can't really become fulfilled by all of it, because once you get to that point that you thought you'd be happy in, you realize that you're still not happy and there's still more to come. And then you get to a point where you just feel empty because all that chasing achieved not much. I mean, you might have achieved quite a lot in that time, but in your own mind, you don't feel like you've achieved enough. You just keep going over and over and over, moving the goalpost, and then you start to resent life. That's when you get the term grumpy old men. You know what I mean? Because they kept chasing, it never really happened for them, and they got resentful about it. They start resenting the people around them, their loved ones, blaming other people, when really and truly, it's not all these other people's faults. And it's not your fault either. It really isn't your fault. It's just the way we're kind of, our brains are trained throughout life to be, you know, men don't like to be thought of as failures. If a man thinks that people think of him as a failure, he's distraught, because that's one of men's biggest fears. You know, we're providers, we're workers, we're problem solvers. And if we feel like we failed at doing any of those, that's where things go downhill and mental health starts to creep in and bad things start to happen up here. And you start to tell yourself some really, really, really bad stuff that's detrimental to your mental health and detrimental to the rest of your life. And then you start feeling lonely and even more resentful, and you become hateful to the world outside, when really there's no need for that. There's just no need. You know, yeah, there's career disappointments, financial pressures, dreams that never happened. This is really important. A dream that never happened. So some men chase dreams and never actually achieve them dreams. But some men actually achieve parts of them, but then still feel empty and restless and like they could do more, they need to do more. They haven't really fully achieved. They haven't got to this level of happiness that they thought they were going to get to. And then they start feeling like they got left behind in life, which can be quite dangerous for a man's mind, you know, and then you're trying to catch up. And then one day you wake up and you realize that at some point you stopped living and started maintaining routine, boredom, everything's the same. You know that saying, Groundhog Day? A lot of men feel that because they get up in the morning, they get ready for work, they go to work, they do a day's work. It's usually boring, it's usually shit. They come home, the same thing is on the table every day, you know, whether they've cooked it themselves or their partner's cooked it or whatever. It just seems to be the same thing all the time, going round and round and round. That also adds to the resentment and the disappointment in life around you, thinking that things should have been better by now, but they just aren't. And that's not because, it's really not because you haven't achieved so much in your life. It's more because when you achieve the things you want to achieve, you don't feel satisfied. You don't feel like it's all been worthwhile, that there's still more for you to do. And then you become emotionally numb, feeling like years are disappearing too quickly. And then you think, well, what's the point? I'll just carry on with whatever I'm doing and I'll just be unhappy for the rest of my life. And it's such a dangerous way to think. It really is. In my opinion, if you wake up in the morning and think, well, let's just go and do this again, nothing's ever going to change. See, when I wake up in the morning, I try, instead of thinking, oh, I've got to go to work and break down all these cages and put all these deliveries away and blah, blah, blah. I try to think, I wonder who's going to walk in the shop today. I wonder what kind of conversations I'm going to have with people today. Because it keeps it interesting and it keeps a sense that something's going to change. Something's going to be different today. All right, my job isn't going to change. I'm still going to be doing the same thing, cutting up bits of meat, serving meat to customers, breaking down combi cages, putting away deliveries. I have routine, yes. But there's always something different throughout the day. There's maybe a new member of staff will start somewhere in the store and you'll get to know somebody. Maybe a customer will come in that you've not seen before, a total stranger, and they'll talk to you about all kinds of different things that you haven't had conversations with about yet. Like, I'm from London, right? And I live in the countryside in Ireland. So, and I've only been here for 5 months. I came here December 2025. So I've been here 5-6 months, whatever. And I've only been working for 3 of those months. So I'm always meeting new people and I'm always having different conversations. So it's really interesting. And I don't feel like Groundhog Day, like I'm waking up at the same time every day and doing exactly the same things. Yes, I've got routine and yes, I stick to those routines, but that's discipline. And it's routines that enable me to function the way I'm supposed to function. But I do break those routines sometimes just for a little, I don't know, a little bit of difference. You know, I'll wake up at 6 in the morning, go feed the dog, go let him out, then go for a shower, or then go have something to eat, then go for a shower, get myself work ready, have a coffee, and then leave. And sometimes my missus will get up and feed the dog, so I'll stay in bed a little bit later. I'll get up a little bit later. Sometimes I'll have a shower in the evening before I go to bed rather than in the morning when I wake up. I mean, I'll still have a good wash. I'll get up in the morning and have a strip wash in front of the sink. But there's always something different. Sometimes I'll have a cup of tea instead of having a cup of coffee. Sometimes I'll have cereal instead of having toast. I know it sounds really stupid, right? And it sounds stupid me saying it, to be quite honest. But just tiny little things, changes in your routine, can make things feel so much different. You know, I'll have toast most mornings, but sometimes I'll go, you know what, I'll just have a couple of boiled eggs, or I'm going to have a bowl of cornflakes. Just something different. just something to change the monotony, because I know it gets boring, right? I know it gets boring, and I know life becomes really monotonous and ridiculous. And sometimes you just have to change one or two little things and things seem so much better. And I'm starting to ramble, so I'll try and get back on point, right? So a lot of men are struggling silently because they think that admitting their failures means they failed at being a man. And that's not actually true. Sometimes we all fail at things, but try not to look at it as a failure. Try to look at it more as a learning experience. I'm sure I've said this in a previous video as well. Try to see it as more of a learning experience. If you fail at something, like I've had one business of my own. I started a business. I had it for a year. It didn't take off. I was a bit upset, but at the same time, I learned so much stuff. I learned what it takes to start a business. I learned what it takes to think about running a business. And I had a 9-to-5 job at the same time. And so my day was just full of work. And sometimes it got really annoying. But the business didn't really take off because, well, not because it was a rubbish idea or anything, but because I couldn't give it the time and affection and the love that it needed to be able to grow properly. I also started from scratch with pretty much no money. I saved up and bought a coffee roaster and I started roasting specialty coffee. And it went okay for a little while, and then it started to die off. And I didn't put the right amount of work in. I didn't do the right things that would have made it work. And I could have made it work. I really could have made it a success. But I didn't do the things that I needed to do. But along the way, I learned what those things were and what I should have been doing. I learned that I should have been doing market research. I learned that maybe I should have inquired about a few Sunday markets and started pushing the coffee there. I learned that maybe I should have spoken to a few more coffee retail places that retail coffee and try to get my coffee in those stores. But I didn't do those things. I relied on online marketing. The place where I worked was actually a coffee shop, so the owner used to buy it off me and we stocked it in there in the shop. But that was it. I didn't go to other places, and I knew that I was supposed to be doing it, but I just didn't get around to doing it. And so after a year, I decided I'm going to close the business. It's not working. I haven't got the time to do the things that I need to do because I don't have money behind me so that I can just leave my job. And also we decided, me and my partner, we decided that we were going to move. So we moved over to Ireland. So I am thinking about possibly starting that business up again over here somehow. But I'm not sure yet. I'm quite happy with just doing my one-to-one. With just doing my 9-to-5, my one-to-one. I don't know where that came from. And then I've got one more thing that I wanted to say here. So, you know, I don't think a lot of men in their 40s are lazy or broken or weak. What I actually think is, I think we're exhausted, disconnected, you know, emotionally numb after years of chasing and surviving. And maybe the first step isn't pretending everything's fine anymore. Maybe it's finally being honest about how empty life can sometimes feel. Because maybe honesty isn't the end. Maybe honesty is where real rebuilding starts. As always, if this video's landed with you or hit a nerve somewhere, please like the video, share the video, and subscribe to the channel for more content around midlife. This is just my story, and these are just my stories, but maybe they ring a few bells with you too. And I'd just like to say, as always, stay safe, keep a positive mental attitude, and I will catch you in the next one.